Hello everybody, Keith here again. I'm going to have a look at my Pleiones and start unpotting them for the winter. I'm probably going to end up doing this over several days, so excuse me if the lighting changes or it looks a little bit strange. I've never kept Pleiones until this year. Well, come to that, I've not kept most of these orchids until this year, so I don't really know what I'm doing. I've had a look at videos by Rachel at Gardening at Douenza and by Danny, and I'm going to have a look for a start at two name varieties I got from Burnham's at the East Midlands Orchid Society show in March 2019. This one is Morna Lower, and it's a small one. The old one that came was a small bulb and a relatively small plant, but it grew very well, and it's grown nicely, and you can see we've got a nice pseudobulb there. So that's Morna Lower. Now this one, which looks as if it's been chewed slightly by slugs, is Iratsu Cheryl, a bigger plant altogether, and this one's actually done a little bit more, because that's the original pseudobulb, which as these things do is all shriveled up, but we've got one small one that just sort of sat on the top. Another one similar there, but you've then got this one which is all shriveled up and horrible. This, which is the big one, it's been sort of superficially chewed, but nothing I don't think is serious. And then we've got something under here, and I don't know what that is, whether that's another pseudobulb that started from the base or a base from new growth. So I'll have a look at both of those in a minute. So we'll start off with Morna Lower, which is done a bit but not very much. It's in, I haven't repotted it, this is how it came. This is in Burnham's own Pleiones seedling compost, so that's disturbed it. Let's just knock it all out like that, and exactly as people say happens with these, the roots have died, as they should have done. So what we have now is another small one, so that's a tiny one which I believe will be viable next year. It will grow on, it will not flower. That is what's left of the old pseudobulb. I don't know whether you can see that very well, perhaps with my hand in the way. See what I'm doing, but that's the old pseudobulb has completely disappeared. So that doesn't want to come off. So I'll get my shears and just trim that leaf off and trim these roots down. Same with this one, that's died off right down to the top of the pseudobulb there, and that just there, well we can see it, but this bit here is next year's new growth that's already emerged, so I've got to be extremely careful. Now the interesting thing is that on the videos I was watching, the bulbs had sheaths on, and these don't appear to have sheaths. This one does a little bit, but it's tiny, and do I really want to start hacking and scratching and generally mucking about with that? I don't think so. It isn't ideal, but I don't want to risk doing more damage than a little. So the plan is, I've been saving paper bags that we've been getting from the greengrocers. We've got a lot of those, and I'm going to put the label in with it, fold that over, write the name on the outside. Right, that's the first one. Let's hope the rest of them are as easy to deal with. There's quite a lot more to do, because I bought some from Thompson & Morgan, which have made monster pseudobulbs, but they had the longest growing. I mean, I've got another one over here in the background, still on the rack, which I brought in because I only bought it in June, and it was a long way behind everything else. I now need to start looking at it in terms of getting rid. Now, that is a little tiny bulb, but we'll see if it does any good next year. There's another one there. That's not, that's more than lower. I'll better change that paper bag, haven't I? I put the wrong name on it. There's a silly boy. Dear me. You'd never think that I was a research academic at one point, would you? Never mind, eh? Right, so there's a couple of bulbs there which a touch of what my granny used to call bronchial trouble, touch of bronchitis or something. I caught it, I think, from a lady on our bus trip to Croatia who had a cough that anybody would be proud of. Now this one hasn't dried out the same. A lot of roots on it. It's done very well, but the roots are now dead. They've all had it. They should do. The roots are deciduous, as are the leaves. And as I've never kept these things before, I don't really know what I'm doing, which is, as Tom Jones said, not unusual. And there's the nubbing just there. So I think with those I can just take those straight off. Now this one, because it's still got some dampness around the base, I'm going to have to leave out somewhere to dry off. This was what was worrying me a little bit about these, that some of them were drying off, some of them weren't. Now I can't see what we've got, but it looks to me as if we've got a growth there. That's the main growth, which is done very well. We have a smaller bulb which is also grown off the bottom of this, and that horrible squidgy thing is what's left of the original pseudobulb. Now that definitely needs drying, so that's going to have to be left on top of the paper bag somewhere to to dry itself. There's no point in putting that away or putting it into the fridge, because that will undoubtedly rot, and that would be a shame, because Eretsu Cheryl is a lovely one. Right, so that's the first two looked at. I mean, it's in quite a nice state. It's made a lovely bulb. There's some signs of it's been chewed, which is a pity, but there's nothing that seems to be particularly deep. What I might do, I'm debating what to do, is to spray it with a bit of hydrogen peroxide. Right, now then, so that's the first group. Let's have a look at some more. These are the main group of Pleiones. I got them from Thompson and Morgan. There was a special offer that we got word of, and I thought, oh, we'll have a go at those. And there were supposed to be two each of three different varieties. There was supposed to be Vivaldi, Rossini and Tongariro. I think they're all Tongariro. So they all look almost exactly the same. But the difference between these and the others is the size of the bulbs. These are much, much bigger than either the Mauna Loa or certainly the Eretsu Cheryl. One of them has got quite a serious chewing on it, but it's got to be said that these are big, and if anything's going to do well for me another year, I would say it's these. Now, I think I'm going to need to get something to put them into. So let's get one of these orchid saucers, and then I can, because I can't do all the whole mass at once. Now, what we've got are all sorts of things here. That is where it said Tongariro. That is a small bulb. But you can see it's got a nubbin on. That will flower, although it's small. Now, I don't think that these differ very much, but as best I can, I can see how long these roots, the roots went all over everywhere. I am going to assume that these were different plants as much as I can. I mean, again, that is another small bulb, but it's got a nubbin. And this pot, although it's been in the garage for a number of weeks now, hasn't dried out. I put it in the garage because it was we've had a lot of rain. I thought, if these things have got to start drying out, then it wants to go somewhere where it's not going to keep getting rained on perpetually. And there we have another one where we've got a nubbin, so that will flower. And then we can look at these. And these are the ones that formed, now that one squidgy, so we'll scrap that one. That was one that was growing out of the top of that pseudobulb. But that feels a bit soft as well. Oh. But that's the old dead bulb, that can come off. We can trim the roots back. And we can get rid of these sheaths. That one's got two growing points on. This one, I don't know, that feels a bit soft. That one feels nice and firm, but we'll see. But I mean, you can see straight away that that is much bigger. That's the size of a small egg. And this one should, I think, be the other one. Again, there's the old bulb. The old bulbs were nothing like that size when we got them. Again, two new growths, both looking solid. But it's wet at the base, so these are going to have to be careful, Keithy, careful. So, oh, there's a third one. Good Lord. So that. Those three should be Tongariro. Well, they're definitely Tongariro, let's put it that way. The others, as far as I could see, looked absolutely identical, but for the time being at least, I will assume they are three different plants. There's nothing else in that segment there. So I'll just go and get some more paper bags, right, and put everything together, but these again are going to have to dry out somewhere because they're wet. Right, these were supposed to be Rossini. As far as I could see, they were exactly the same. But there we go. So that's the old bulb, and that's one that's formed on the top of it and put roots down. And lo and behold, that's going to try and flower next year. These sheaths, which need to come off, at least they're quite cobwebby. They're not sort of single sheets. We've got two nice growing tips on there. Again, you can see it's another big bulb. Great starting point, obviously. I can take all of this lot off. But just like the previous ones, they're going to have to be done. And then we've got this little cluster. This is the problem with trying to grow them. There's in one pot and hoping that they were going to all end up looking the same. Now that, I think, is a secondary. because it's not quite as big, but nevertheless you've got a new growth there and a new growth down in the bottom. And then there's this one. Ooh, that old bulb is seriously rank. It really is. Now this is the one that I am sort of the least happy with. It looks as if we've certainly had something in there. Even though I tried to keep slugs at bay, which is a problem, of course, when you're growing them outside. I haven't got a greenhouse, so when it comes to keeping them alright, that's where they've got to go outside. I mean, that's quite a deep gouge in there. Well, we can see that it's quite a deep gouge, but even so, we've got a new growth there and we've got a new growth there, so I'm going to try and keep my fingers crossed that that is going to be good. Now there's some more here and I don't know what they're off. That's the problem, you don't know where some of these have come from. So another year I'm going to have to I'll have to grow them separate, without a doubt. There's no doubt these are really big pseudobulbs. The plants obviously liked it where I'd got them. Got lots and lots of rain. I've got to say, these things are supposed to want a lot of fertiliser, but it's a bit difficult when they're outside and it's basically chucking it down with rain. So you know, you don't want to drown the things. This stuff is Vernon's Pleiones seedling compost. So these nominally at least are Vivaldi. We've had massive root runs on these. Quite superficial root runs. I don't know if that's how they should be, but the roots did seem to keep very, very close to the surface. Now that is very surprising. That's not a particularly big bulb. That's a secondary. That's either grown off, probably grown on the top of one of the old pseudobulbs. But we've got a new growth on there and a little one just there. These are remarkable things, these Pleiones. I'm quite surprised and very, very pleased with what I've ended up with, for the most part. I do believe we found a slug. Yes, we found a slug. Well, well, well. I don't know what he's been eating lately. I hope it's not been anything out of this. But I'm not going going to try and take the sheaths off that new growth. We've only got that one spur there on this one. Nevertheless, it's a big bulb and it's going to give its next new growth a really good start in life, I think. Oh, there was another one. Drat! I've just knocked it off. Never mind. Never mind. Never mind. Can't be helped. And then we've got this one. So some of these did have more than one growing point. Whether or not they flowered on both, I don't think they did. But again, the old bulb just eases off like that. And I'll just try and clean this up now. I will be a little bit more careful because we've got a new growth just there and we've got a new growth just there. So that has two growths, one from the very bottom, one just up from the bottom. So that can be trimmed to there. And another big one. I mean, that's the marvellous thing about these, whatever they are, whether Tongariro, Rossini, Vivaldi, you know, Jackson's Delight, or what on earth they might be. Well, they're certainly Jackson's Delight, whatever the variety, but I'm extremely pleased with these. As I've never kept Pleiones before. You could almost say they've thrived on neglect. They were just stuck outside in an area which didn't get a lot of sunlight. It was up against the western side of the garden near the fence. It got a little bit of sunshine down the path as the sun came round, but after that it was bright enough, but it didn't get a lot of direct sunshine, so that obviously suited them very well. I think another year I might try and grow a bit higher off the ground, but on the whole we've done okay. So yeah, we've got a little slug there that's showing himself. Well, he'll end up in the bin in a minute, and all the rest of the rubbish from that thing. So we've ended up starting off with two bulbs of each type. We've got two big ones, one intermediate one. Well, the two big ones have both got, well, they both had two, and I managed to knock one off one, so there's at least one on each one of those. There's two on that intermediate bulb. There's one on that small bulb, and nothing on that one, but if I don't get anything off that one, it's not the end of the world. It's far from the end of the world. So, we're done, I think. I can't feel any more of them. They all come near the surface. It's not as if we've got plenty of bits of ceiling tile to use for drainage. But yeah, it's there's another small one. Very, very small. I chuck it in there. What it's I think that's been a success, you could say, definitely been a success. I'm quite pleased with that. That's an acorn that a squirrel's buried. devils. Right. Okie dokie. That's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. I hope it's not been disappointing. It's the first time I've done anything like this, and I'm really quite pleased with the way things have turned out. I hope it'll encourage you to grow Pleiones of your own. They're not hard. You have to use a water retentive compost because they do like to drink when they get going, but initially they've got no roots, so you have to just damp it enough to make it there's another dead pseudobulb. You have to do it just enough as they start to grow, because what happens with these is this will shoot. It doesn't put roots out, it'll live entirely off that pseudobulb, and that will come up and there'll be a flower on the end of it. And when that flower is over, the base of that stem will swell and become the next pseudobulb. Now, some of the old pseudobulbs will put new secondary nubbins grow from the top. Now they're always going to be smaller because they've got to form and then put roots down and then reach into the compost and get going. But they are viable. I'm told everything that I've read says they are viable, and you can grow them on. They'll swell. They won't actually do much for several years. But the way these things have grown with the big bulbs, if the small ones don't do anything, I don't think I've lost much. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.